Hello and welcome to the Breakthrough Clean University video series. I'm Gabriel Cabrera and I'm the Marketing Director for Breakthrough Clean, and with me today is Jerry Nova from Nova Arms. How's it going, Jerry?
How you doing?
In today's video, we will show you how to properly disassemble, clean, and maintain your AR-15 platform, and the products that we'll be using today are
Okay, before we go any further, we'd like to remind everybody about the safety rules. Always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. Always make sure the firearm is unloaded. Always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot.
All right, guys, the final piece to the puzzle, which is the lower receiver. We're going to clean. There's nothing to really take apart here except for the buffer, which we're going to show you now, and then certain areas that you want to stay on top of for preventative maintenance, which is really just lubrication for this one. Okay?
A couple of things you might want to do first is push these pins in just in case you happen to drop your lower off the table. You don't want to have to go and replace those pins and maybe crack the lower or whatever.
Yeah, and it can crack right here, like Jerry's saying. One thing you can do there, if there's any excess dirt, you can just wipe it through and take it out. You don't really need to use a lot of solvent here. It's a lot of dry cleaning. If you have compressed air, that is the best way to clean a lower receiver. Because remember, this doesn't really require a lot of oil or anything. So it's just kind of getting the rest of the stuff dumped off into here from the upper receiver. So it's not necessarily wet in any way, so you can just kind of use compressed air in there and get a lot of the stuff out. Just kind of clean over the top and wipe as needed. Now, one part that I will say every now and again that it doesn't hurt to take out is the buffer and buffer spring. Now, all I would do here is really just for preventative maintenance.
Just wipe it down.
Wipe it down and make sure that this pin hasn't walked. You have tungsten weights inside this buffer. Now, the weights depend on what weight you need for the buffer. Traditionally, you have standard carbine, you have heavy 2, which is an H2 stamped on the front of the buffer, and an H3. Don't worry about it too much. If your rifle came like that from the manufacturer, leave it like that. It was timed for a reason. This is one of the true ways that you could time the reciprocal timing of an AR. So needless to say, if you grab a different one or you see a shiny one that looks cool on a website, be wary, always resort or refer to your user's manual and ask questions to that manufacturer if you need to. But always keep an eye out for this pin right here. Make sure it hasn't walked, especially under intense fire. If you have a SBR, suppressed, full auto, anything like that, these may walk and now you're scarring the inside of that tube. Also, you want to make sure that the buffer isn't damaged, it's not split. You don't see it too often, but with older platforms you might, because it's a rubber piece, right? This is what keeps the metal tube in the back from breaking. Right, so there's a lot of abuse on this little platform right here.
The only time you really have to worry about that is if you're going to modify your rifle and change your upper and changing barrel sizes and suppressor, or if you're going to go full out and turn it into a full auto.
Yep. So. Which, remember, you can't do no matter what YouTube tells you. So bear that in mind. The only two places that you could really mess up the beautiful timing on this platform is the buffer system in the back and the upper receiver if it happens to have an adjustable gas block. If you're adjusting it for a certain reason, be careful and always refer to the user manual. Or, like Jerry said, just leave it alone. Forget it's there.
Okay. If it's working fine, don't mess with it.
Yep. So, again, you see some debris in here. You can clean it off with a brush or shop air or blow it out, right? Now, besides that, you can check for function, and this is one that Jerry was telling me about.
You never want to let it drop.
Exactly. So as I'm pulling the trigger, I put my finger on the hammer because I don't want it to slam on the frame. As you could hear,
that's not good for your bolt catch.
This right here, see how it's hitting this? Especially this very expensive, intricate, ambidextrous bolt catch / bolt release, it's going to break it because the full force of this hammer is stopping right there. You can see because now I can't even move this part. See? So if you're checking the trigger for function, always put your thumb on it. You don't have to ride down on it because then you're not going to get the true trigger feel if you're trying to test for that if you've installed a new trigger.
Now I have seen Brownell sells a little block you could put in there. It's like a polymer block that is designed to take the full force of the trigger, of the hammer.
Which is a good idea because it's cheap. It's cheap insurance. Make sure that the pins are exactly where they need to be. One thing that you could do here as far as lubrication and in more than one spot, our Battleborn grease you can use with the applicator. Pull the trigger, ride it forward, right? And you can get in right on the engagement areas and you can tell which ones they are. Why? Because that's where the color is going to be taken off. Exactly. So as you can see here in the overhead camera, I'm going to put a little bit right there. I'm going to put a little bit behind it, right? Then I'm just going to have it go there. Now, this one doesn't hurt if you already have a little bit of grease on your finger. That's actually where the carrier rides over. All right? So if you put a little bit right there, just makes things a lot smoother. The one that I have seen that does a good bit to quiet down the buffer and take away from that scratchy noise is right there. Not on the front, that has nothing to do with the friction that's being applied to this buffer, but you put it around the sides, right? And that's it. You can twist it in if you need to. Put a little bit more grease there if you need to. And put it into the lower. When you're putting it into the lower, just be careful with the detent that's in there. Sometimes just putting it in a little quicker will get you around that detent, which is right there. All right, and that's another maintenance point. Make sure that that's not broken, because then this will fly out of the lower receiver while the gun is shooting.
Make it very difficult to take apart.
Yep. So now we're going to put the gun back together. We have our upper, our lower, and our bolt and carrier group already prepped and ready to go. So we're going to pull the charging handle rearward just slightly. We're going to allow clearance here for this little snorkel, right, for that gas key.
Make sure your bolt is all the way forward in the carrier assembly. If not, it will not allow it. The little cam pin is not going to allow it to go in. Lock it into place.
If you want, while you're putting it together, to keep everything from riding out, you can close the dust cover. Hold the upper, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
I push the takedown pins out.
The pivot pin out.
Safety on.
Hook up the pivot pin first.
We can lay the upper.
Very tight fit, so.
Yeah. So we're just gonna lay it down and make sure that we get.
Do the front one first. Super tight.
Yeah. This one's really tight, so we might need to. There we go. And do a quick function check. See how slick that sounds? And even with that little bit of grease in the back, you kind of heard the buffer quiet down a little bit. You don't hear that raw aluminum sound anymore. Seeing how the grease is a little bit thicker, it sticks on there. So now we lock it back. Safety on, right? And you have a clean platform. If you wanted to, you can let it run forward, close the dust cover, collapse the stock all the way, set it in your safe, it's good to go. Remember, none of our products break down over time, so unlike other products that you've seen that are already in the market, you go through all this trouble of cleaning the platform, lubricating it, getting it ready to go, and next time you have time to go to the range, you go to pull your rifle out of the gun locker or safe or whatever you have, and it's like someone put molasses in there. You don't have to worry about it. All of our lubricants, like we said in our videos before, are synthetic.
Once again, thank you for joining us. And don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook.
And for any other questions, go to www.breakthroughclean.com. Take care.